Alrighty, today let's take a look at how to get 1 to 300 engineering in WoW Classic now 2025 anniversary servers. So there's a couple paths to do this. I did use Wowhead for a lot of my different tips and tricks here. As you see the different trainers, obviously pause the video as you need to actually write some of this stuff down or to reference back to it as far as that goes. But here's the trainers for Alliance, Horde, the Neutral, and the Expert. So eventually you're gonna have to make the decision. Do you want to go Gnomish or Goblin Engineering? I highly recommend if you're doing a true try-hard method, is you would do Gnomish. You would make all of the bind on pickup patterns, drop Gnomish, re-level the whole way and max out the Goblin because the Goblin Sapper Charges are great for PvP and PvE, and you'll still be able to use the Gnomish ones as far as that goes. So you get both of best worlds essentially. So here's the different trainers. This is the different materials you want to buy. So there's a decent bit of materials, but overall it doesn't cost too much to be able to get you where you want to go as far as that goes. Now with engineering, 1 to 135. So you want to start off by just using your rough stone, making 1 through 30, a bunch of rough blasting powder. Then from 30 to 50, you want to do the handful of copper bolts. 50 to 51, you need the spanner. 51 to 75, you're just going to make about 30 rough copper bombs. 75 to 90, you're going to make coarse blasting powder. These are nice and cheap. Then you're going to make 20 coarse dynamite, going from 90 to 100. From 100 to 105, you're going to get silver to make the silver contact. From 105 to 135, you're going to make a ton of bronze tubes. From 125 to 135, you're going to make 10 standard scopes. Moving on next, now 135 to 205. So starting off, you're going to be making about 30 heavy blasting powders, once again, cheap. Then you're going to make the bronze gizmos, about 15 of them, from 135 to 150. And then 150 to 160, you're going to make 15 bronze framework. From 160 to 175, you want to make about 15 explosive sheep. Then you're going to make one of the micro adjusters. Then from 176 to 195, solid blasting powder, which this is used in a ton of different recipes later on. So if you ever see solid stone cheap on the auction house, anywhere from 5 to 8 silver, I pick up a bunch. That's how I make a lot of profit making Goblin Sapper Charges and selling them. From 195 to 200, you're going to make 7 mithril tubes. Now you're leveling up. Here we go. From 200 to 300. Now, I forgot to mention, to go from the Gnomish to the Goblin, you only need to get the Gnomish, like just overall engineering level, to about 250 or 260, I believe, is what you need to be able to craft all of the items before dropping it. So you don't have to technically get the whole way to 300 if you plan on dropping it to level the Goblin afterwards. So from 200 to 215, you want to make 20 unstable triggers. These are used also in a ton of different recipes, especially the Goblin Sapper Charges. From 215 to 238, you're going to make 40 mithril castings. 238 to 250, you're going to make 20 high explosive bombs. From 250 to 260, 30 dense blasting powders. 260 to 285, a ton of thorium widgets, about 35 of them. This is also used in the Dark Moon Fair turn-ins, so you can make some profit if you buy the thorium bars cheap beforehand, and then the week leading up to the Dark Moon Fair, you'll see these spike in prices. People will need these to turn in for tickets. And then from 285 to 300, you're going to make thorium shells. So if you didn't know, also with the thorium shells, you can turn it into your major city like Orgrimmar. There's a guy where you can turn the shells into arrows if you have a bow instead. Let's take a look. Here's the Gnomish Engineering that I was speaking of. So there's a couple unique different things that you can make. The biggest one would be the Gnomish Battle Chicken. and the Gnomish Death Ray. So Gnomish Death Ray is very good for PvP. It is like a 3-4 second cast and does a ton of damage. So as a rogue, I can do a nice big stun, or I can do a gouge into a Gnomish Death Ray and just a ton of burst damage. For the Gnomish Battle Chicken, I could pop it right before the fight starts, swap to a different trinket, and then I get that chicken fighting for a minute and a half. So it's nice little extra damage. Now, these other different items here are items that you can make with the Gnomish. You have to be Gnomish to make them, but you can buy them on the auction house. So personally, I have 2 level 60s. I keep one of them Gnomish just so they could make these items, and I make a ton of profit by making and reselling them on the auction house. But the raw materials that you need to be able to complete the Gnomish Engineering quest is these ones over here on the side. Now the Goblin, like I said, the big ones that you're after with the Goblin construction helm, I believe this is the one that you need to craft to be able to then make into the Goblin rocket helm. But these are all that you can buy on the auction house itself. I make a ton of gold overall by making and selling Goblin jumper cables, Sapper Chargers, rocket boots, and rocket helm. So these 4 items I make a ton of gold off of. Here's all the items that you're going to need to be able to complete the Goblin Engineering quest. Now, you can just straight buy the items if you didn't want to make them, but at this point you might as well just buy these and make these, probably save yourself a decent bit of chunk change. So looking at the top patterns overall that you can get, so the Arcanite Dragoling, this is another one that you could essentially pop before a big fight and then swap to different trinkets, and you'll get something fighting for you for a minute. Not terrible. This shield is pretty good. You get the pattern out of MC, and a lot of different tanks will use it in the beginning, but eventually, you know, there's tons of different shields now. But if this was fresh, then yes, this would be a great pattern to get. And it's buy and equip, so you make these 2 and you can sell them on the auction house. The field repair bot, you're going to go to BRD, and then there's you go to the one boss down below, and you have to have the 300 engineering to be able to pick up the pattern off the ground. You can solo it and then vanish after if you're a rogue or whatever. You have the Goblin Sapper Charges, like I said, is amazing for PvP and PvE. And then this accurate scope, I've yet to ever see it drop in any of my raids, but to be able to give 3% hit, and this is specifically range hit, it does not apply to like melee, on a bow is just absurd. I think right now to be able to buy one of these, because you can make them, put them on the auction house if you get the pattern, is like 600-700 gold. So if you get this, you can make a ton of gold, especially if you're one of only on the server to have it. The other PvP patterns that are worth mentioning is all of the different reflectors. So you have the flame reflector, the frost, the shadow. These are huge for PvP. Or if you're even doing doles and you know what you're up against. A lot of times, like I'm up against, mages. That's where I struggle as a rogue a little bit. So to be able to have a reflect back, to be able to basically reflect back their frost nova would be absolutely amazing. Or the ultra shadow to reflect some of the warlocks with their death coil and different things of that sort. So you have the Gnomish cloaking device, which is great. Gives you 10-second invisibility. This is a very good one, and you can actually use it for a bunch of niche little solo dungeon tricks. Iron grenade, you can also have a thorium grenade, but iron grenades are cheap. They're like 10 silver, where thorium's like a gold. This is what I personally use in PvP itself because it's so cheap. You have, like I said, the Goblin rocket helm is just massive. To be able to knock someone down, stun them for 30 seconds essentially, is amazing. So if someone gets the gap on me and I need to close the gap, I can use the Goblin rocket helm. And then, like I said, for me as a rogue, or if you're a hunter, you could build it into the macro that it then swaps to your other helmet after you like feign death or vanish, so you get the effect. Plus you then can switch to your main damage, since it is a 30-minute or 20-minute cooldown. And then the Gnomish mind controlling cap, it's kind of like what the priests have. So you could have little cheeky things and do it maybe on Arathi Basin up at the top of the lumber mill, and then mind control someone and make them jump off. But those are all the different patterns that you can get, whether it's for PvP, PvE. There's so much with engineering. This is one of the best money making overall. Even though a lot of people can already just make these themselves, a lot of people are too lazy to actually make the items themselves, and they'll just buy it off the auction house. So like I said, with the field repair bots, and some of the Goblin jumper cables, the Zapper cable, the rocket boots, I'm selling hundreds and hundreds of these different items where I'm profiting, I don't know, 500-600 gold almost every single week by selling a collection of all the different stuff. So there's definitely a ton of profit to be made, and hopefully this guide was helpful. Please drop a comment below if there's anything I missed, or what item do you craft that generates you the most profit, or what item do you use the most. Until next time though, game on.